So my Algebra 2 teacher follows me on Instagram pretty heavily.
What do you mean heavily?
Like, likes everything and makes sure to comment on all of it saying I have a cool job. And today she wrote to me saying, I think you have the coolest job ever, and I wish you could say, Mrs. Hopple, I use math every day, and the Algebra 2 you taught me helps me all the time, but sadly, I know that's not the case.
Oh my.
Throwing me under the bus there.
Sounds like she cried herself
Jokes
to
on
sleep
her. I
that
never
night.
got an A in that class, so good thing I don't use algebra every day.
I love when teachers are like, oh yeah, it's such a blessing you were in my class. I'm like, you hated me and also I failed. But
It's like you hated me and I hated you. I didn't hate Miss Hopple. She was actually pretty cool. But there were other teachers where they absolutely hated me and didn't try to hide it, and I hated them back. And now they're like, oh, well, you know, I see that you have a really cool job. And I'm like, oh, really?
oh, do you?
Really? You see
yeah?
it now? Okay, bye.
That happens to me now too. My high school sent me an email being like, we'd love to feature you in the winter magazine. I
They
was
did
like,
that to me.
Get away from me.
They wrote to me and said that they had been seeing my success and wanted to feature me in the alum
Doesn't that piss you
something.
off?
Well, especially because my high school outed me to everyone. So fuck you guys. No
Fuck
thanks.
you.
Anyone listening from my high school, big old middle finger to you.
My high school's like suing my mom right now. So I'm like, can we separate? Are we separating those two things? Like,
They didn't even out me. They threw me out of the fucking closet.
that's not okay.
So, and our headmaster is a lesbian. So, like, whose side do you think she'd be on?
Oh, you just outed her on a podcast.
She's a lesbian.
Look at that.
And the funny part is then after she came out, people were like, we stand behind her. We support LGBT shit. And I'm like, oh, cry me a fucking river. You didn't stand behind me when she helped out me.
That's such bullshit.
Anyway. And that's why I drink.
Welcome to And That's Why We Drink.
You just got a nice segment of why I drink.
It's a podcast, and I'm Christine.
Oh, all right. And I am M.
Okay, you said that like...
Well, I mean, 40 episodes in, we're now introducing ourselves.
I mean, we were on a BuzzFeed article recently. We've got a lot of new listeners, and I feel like maybe I have to pretend like we're a normal podcast for a minute.
Well, this weekend was pretty big for us. We hit 1 million downloads.
Hey!
We're supposed to be eating ice cream cake while we record this.
We're also under a plunger again.
Yeah, we're still in our pillow fort because we haven't done anything. Actually, that's a lie. We would have done a lot to create a space, but we don't because Christine was in the hospital all week.
Hey, I'm back.
She didn't have a good week, guys.
I was emailing most of you from the hospital. I was up till 4 a.m. most nights just like responding to emails. It was really fun.
Although, shout out to the people who sent us pictures of them also in hospitals.
Oh, yeah.
They felt very unifying.
It was kind of nice to be not the only one, but here I am. I'm alive. I'm back. I can drink again.
Well, you didn't stop.
I mean, I did because I was, nobody snuck me any booze into the hospital, but...
I told Christine I would sneak her booze because she said she was on a clear liquid diet, and I was like, vodka's clear. So...
Em threatened to put it in my IV bag. I was like...
I didn't threaten. I
offered kindly.
I offered kindly. It was out of love.
The only issue is that I was also on a lot of Dilaudid, which is a very strong opiate, and I was like... Things aren't going to go well.
I watched Christine get her pain medication, and there was a good 5 Mississippi seconds where she was like, give me a second.
I needed to breathe.
I'm about to go for a wild ride. And then later I left the hospital, and she texted me, and she was like, I'm tripping balls right now.
They switched from morphine to like the strong stuff, and I was like, wow, this is much worse. I'm glad Em is not here to witness this.
I wish I was.
Anyway, but I'm alive, and you're alive, and here we are.
And here we are.
And our high schools are jealous of us.
Well, they just want me for my obvious thriving fame.
Obviously.
Doesn't it show?
Speaking of thriving fame, do you want to know why I drink this week?
Yeah.
Because our house almost got broken into yesterday.
Oh, is it because we're famous?
Well, a couple of people joked like, oh.
Guys, for the record, we're not fucking famous. Before iTunes reviews start saying that we think too much of ourselves, we're kidding. We're kidding. We have a show called And That's Why We Drink. We don't think much of ourselves.
I mean, I'm just going to speak for themselves, but I'm pretty famous.
Okay, Christine's
I'm totally kidding.
Definitely famous, and that's why her house got broken into this week.
Well, so a couple of my friends were like, "Oh, is it because of your podcast?" I was like, "Yeah, it's because of my fucking podcast." No, it's because I just moved into a new house, and these people. I got home and there was this lady and she comes running and apparently she's my new neighbor and she's like, "I called the police, they're on their way. I saw a guy leaving your backyard and when he saw me, he screamed, 'We got to get the fuck out of here.' And 2 other men jumped over the 7-foot wall."
Oh, they just are just like jaguars, apparently.
Leaped over it. And I was like, uh-oh. And so she said all 3 of them leaped over the wall and then got into a moving SUV and drove off.
Shit.
And I was like, oh shit. And she goes, "Check out the backyard and everything." And I went back there. They had unlocked the gate and they had kicked in a basement window.
Oh no.
But they hadn't gotten in.
Wait, is there a hole in your basement window now?
It's like a mesh screen type of thing that they had kicked in, but you can't fit into it.
Oh, so why'd they do it then? That's stupid.
To see if they could access it, but once you open it, it's really narrow. But yeah, so they didn't make it in, but I was kind of terrified, and Gio was all worked up, but he's okay.
Aw, baby G. And also that was right after you got back from the hospital. So you're
the day after.
You're today could not get any worse. And then all of a sudden, you know what? That's a nice way to meet your neighbor at least.
Yeah. I was like, thanks.
Here's my personality and my pro traits. I'm here to look out for you.
Yep, exactly. I was like, sorry, I'm still bandaged from the fucking IV.
Christine still has bruises and everything. She looks like an addict.
It's pretty gross.
Where all of her IVs were.
Blech. But yeah, so I almost got broken into, but honestly, it didn't faze me. Everyone's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like,
well, didn't you grow up with that?
Yeah. Well, I counted, and this is number 11 of break-ins I've experienced, and I'm like, honestly, it doesn't faze me, which is not good.
That's not good.
No, but I feel like
I would be the opposite. I would be like, holy shit.
I feel like I draw this stuff to me, and I don't know why, but it happens all the time. And my car's been broken into, and my
oh my god,
dorm room, everything.
I've thank God never had any. I've never experienced any version of a break-in or a violation like that. Yeah. So
it is terrifying.
The second it happens to me for the first time will be the day I lose my mind because I'm not going to know how to react because I'm not used to it.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like you have paranormal experiences and I don't. And I have all these true crime experiences.
Yeah, every time a ghost is in my house, I'm like, oh, what else is new? But then you would probably freak out.
If there's a fucking ghost in my house,
there is.
I would set it on fire.
No, wait. Well, you could try.
I would. Also, speaking of ghosts in my house, I did the diedinhouse.com. Nobody died in this house. I know.
Well, that's good.
Sorry to disappoint.
I mean, that's also impressive for a house that's almost 100 years old.
Yeah. I thought so.
But that doesn't mean there's no ghosts.
No, it doesn't. But I just wanted to clear the air on that because people were wondering. But
okay. That's fine. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes me feel a little better.
It doesn't explain why this house is haunted.
I don't think it's haunted.
It is.
I don't believe you.
Okay.
I mean,
only time will tell.
This is me trying to get Em to play Ouija board with me.
No. You own a Ouija board. You can just do that without me here.
But I'd rather have you here.
So you can have a screaming human in the corner? No. Also, I don't understand why that door freaks me out. I was just looking at the door and then I told myself it moved, but it didn't. But your house is also haunted. But anyway, I just freaked myself out. I feel like if you did play with a Ouija board, though, I would come into your house and I would just smell that it had been used. I'd be like,
I know.
There has been voodoo experience here.
I feel like I'm one of those people who needs approval. Even though I know you won't give it to me, I'm going to beg for it until you give it to me so that I can feel okay about it.
On my deathbed, you'll be like, please, let's start the Ouija board game now. So by the end, you're on the other side.
I'll transition.
Yeah.
Before I forget, I also want to say that this episode is donated to one of our $25 Patreon sponsors.
Yay!
Our faves. And this episode in particular is dedicated to Orion.
I like Orion.
Orion's great, and he has a fucking awesome name.
I'm assuming there aren't many Orions that listen to us, so I'm going to assume this is the Orion that likes all of my stuff on Twitter.
Yeah, he's very active on Twitter.
You can find me at the M Schultz.
All right, aren't we supposed to be plugging Orion, not you?
Oh, right. You can find Orion at on my friends list at the M Schultz.
You're an asshole. Orion is really great and really funny and nice, and I wonder if he has a belt.
Jesus Christ. Oh, my God. I hope you were the first person to use that on him, but I don't think you were.
It's worth a shot.
Orion. That's a very regal name.
It's pretty badass.
Yeah. No one messes with you when you're a kid and your name's Orion.
Hell no.
It's like your name being Thor.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty badass. Mm-hmm. So that's that. Em, what are you drinking today?
Sweet tea.
Yeah.
Because we went into this podcast thinking I would always have access to milkshakes, but now that you're an hour commute, I can't do it anymore. Although, to be fair, you did have ice cream ready for me in the freezer, which was very nice of you.
I did.
However, also, you ate a lot of it. So I don't know if I could get a milkshake out of the amount that's left.
I offered it to you, and then you didn't take it, so I ate it.
But we should definitely regularly keep, like, a carton here for me and a blender so we can just make milkshakes on the spot.
You're right. It would be actually kind of fun to have, like, our own recipes. We could make, like...
Oh, yeah. And we could also do, like halftime milkshakes. Or, like, I could be like, intermission, and I'll go make another milkshake.
Elevator music. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'm down.
We'll discuss it. People, send in your ideas.
I'm drinking a box of wine. Surprise to everybody.
Wow. It's red, like always. Is it Cab?
It's a Shiraz.
Okay. It was one of the two. You gotta mix it up, man. No? Why are you looking at me like that?
I don't know. I'm really tired. Okay. Yes, it's a Shiraz. I'm boring.
It's okay. You're not boring after you drink a lot of Shiraz.
That's true.
So, balances out.
This is just like a vehicle.
Right.
To entertainment. Yeah, one last thing before we get started. We are going to do our next, what is it?
Facebook Live event.
Yeah, Facebook Live event for all Patreon donators, whether you donate like a cent or like $100.
Thank you if you were to send us $100. No one does.
No,
but thank you.
But we can hope. But we're going to do that, and we want to announce the date. It's going to be on October 8th, which is a Sunday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Yes.
So we're going to post in, if you're a Patreon donator, go to the Patreon Facebook group and join it, because we're going to post like the time zones and all that there, and you'll be in like a countdown so that you know when that's going to happen. And if you're not available and you have to miss it, it is going to save on the page and you can watch it later.
Yep.
October 8th, it's a Sunday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We will be there. That's in like exactly a week from today, actually, when this comes out.
Do we have a tripod, or are we using bread again?
I mean...
Because last time we used bread. I have a selfie stick if we just have to do it on our phones again, like trash.
Let's do a selfie stick!
That'll be frustrating for only us.
And
their eyes, everyone's eyes.
It'll be frustrating for the entire world.
We'll all hate each other.
All right, perfect. I'm ready for to be entertained.
Okay. I can give that to you.
Really?
Well, I mean, it's going to be entertaining no matter what. I can't promise how.
Oh, boy.
Either this will be successful and entertaining in its own right, or I'm going to fail, and it's going to be a really bad story, and you'll just watch me flounder, and that will be the entertainment.
That might be more entertaining.
Well, that's also what's most likely.
Let's try that one.
Okay. So this is by the way, do you like my notes? Like, things are just scratched out and covered in redding.
They look really fancy. You have like numbers and bullets and arrows. Actually,
this is the worst version of notes I've ever done. So again, entertainment for everyone.
Oh man, I'm so ready.
Just not of their own choosing. So Christine knows this, but I have like the world's worst headache right now.
Yeah, I feel really bad about that.
I'm on 6 Excedrin right now. Currently.
I don't think that's safe, but...
I mean... If we mix it with how much wine you drink, it would not be safe.
No. And then Em goes, oh, do you have any like real painkillers? I'm like, you took 6 Excedrin. I'm not giving you codeine, but okay.
But it would have helped. But anyway, so I'm just like running on steam right now. So basically I was going to work on these notes while I was at work and then come here. But my head hurt so bad that I didn't have time to actually like format anything. So that's why it looks like this.
So I'm setting us up for a miserable time.
I'm setting you up for exactly what you get every week.
Nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed. 40 episodes in and I still can't fucking figure out a page of bullets. Okay, so this is called the Summerwind Mansion.
That sounds fancy as fuck.
In Wisconsin.
Not so much anymore, but...
Well...
Was that rude?
I don't know.
I've never been to Wisconsin.
I'm pretty sure like 2 people from Wisconsin listen to us, so they can tell us if it's rude.
I'm sorry. I do like cheese, though.
So, it all starts in 1916. Bum, 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 which is just over 100 years ago. It's kind of like this house. In 1916, the house was built by Robert P. Lamont as a summer home. Lamont, fun fact, would later be the future Secretary of Commerce under President Hoover.
Oh, wow.
So as Lamont was going to build, I guess he was building around the already, like there was already a foundation there and he was building on top of it. And so while he was doing his renovations to move in, the maids said that like, hey, this place is supposedly haunted. They're just, you know, anytime we've been here, anytime people who have been around this area, they've heard a lot of sounds, a lot of people saying their names. Just like heads up, like this place might be haunted. So if you're about to,
just a little heads up,
just so you know, if something happens, I don't feel bad that I didn't say something.
Don't say we didn't warn you.
Yeah. And per usual, per straight white man,
Sure.
he laughed at the maids and said, "There's no such thing as ghosts." So enter my paranormal story.
Enter the demise of this man.
So while they were there isn't a lot of references that they experienced a lot of haunts, but they did say that they felt being watched a lot. They also like would hear sounds upstairs, but they assumed they were just like cracks and creaks from the wind. Mm-hmm. And the one and only ghost experience they had was the one that had them flee the house and never come back.
Oh, no.
So Mr. Lamont and his wife were sitting at the table eating ice cream.
Oh, sounds about right.
Which in 1934, I can't imagine is good ice cream.
Well, maybe it is because they use all that like heavy cream and stuff.
Maybe it's really good
like
ice cream.
Really good.
I didn't get a recipe.
I have really dumb questions that I feel like people on Twitter are always like bashing me for, but like...
No, I appreciate the dumb questions because I'm also probably thinking them.
I'm taking away from you.
Right? Yeah.
What were there freezers? I guess they were invented around then. But you had to be really rich, I think, to have a freezer.
Well, this house also was super... like it was like made for the wealthy, so like even President Hoover stayed with them a couple times.
So it was like a
high-end home.
place.
It was a mansion.
Okay.
And then two of Chicago's most famous architects actually helped build it.
Oh,
so there's that. A lot of luminaries were hanging out here.
Luminaries.
A lot of Maine big dogs.
So there was ice cream. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, we don't know about the I assume a freezer was there for it to be that cold.
I would imagine. Unless, I mean, it is Chicago, right? Oh, no, it's Wisconsin. So it must have been cold anyway.
So
I'm going to stop asking questions. Please go on.
It's okay. So while they were having ice cream, all of a sudden the door to their dining room started to shake and shudder.
Nope.
And like rattle. And then it flew open and an apparition of a man manifested. Just like showed up out of thin air. It was a black shadow. And he thought that there was an intruder, and so he pulls out his gun that he just had on his hip because it's 1934 in Wisconsin, and he fired 2 shots at what he thought was a man. And the door between the room they were in and where the door led was to the cellar. So basically, he shot at the cellar twice. And just as fast as the guy showed up, he vanished. But there were 2 bullet holes there to like show what happened. And those bullet holes were there for a long time afterwards.
And the man was like, I just wanted some butter pecan.
Like, I just wanted some ice cream, guys. So they ended up fleeing that night and never going back, supposedly.
But can you imagine? I'm sorry, we're sitting next to the cellar door and just the thought.
Oh, I forgot. You're right.
Maybe I should get a gun.
Oh, well, yes.
That's the only logical conclusion.
Right. I heard, I don't even know what I heard. Just now you freaked me out.
You
I forgot.
heard something.
I don't know what's going on. I just had a total mental breakdown in my own head. Just a total.
In the span of 2 seconds?
Yeah, it was a quick one. But it happened. I can't even talk.
What's happening? Stop looking at the door. You're freaking me out.
You freaked me out. I forgot we were next to a cellar door.
We're not eating ice cream. It's fine.
I usually have ice cream, so that thing would be coming for me.
I did just eat a lot of ice cream.
Okay, hopefully it's coming for you. Because you have wine in your glass and ice cream in your stomach.
I just wanted some boxed wine.
Where's the Shiraz?
Hold on, my helicopter's arriving. It's dropping off.
I have arrived. All right. Okay, where were we?
Who the hell knows?
2 bullets in. I forgot.
Get it? I'm sweating so much. Remember how we got new listeners and now they're all gone? Oh, man.
So I'm just going to try and recap real quick. There was someone basically I died, came back as a ghost, wanted some ice cream, and then someone shot at me twice.
So fucking rude.
So fucking rude. By the way, if I haunt you, don't do that.
Don't shoot you?
Try not to.
Oh.
I mean, it's not like you'll kill me.
Well, then don't try to steal my ice cream. It's like I offered you some in real life.
Actually, you know, it would be really sweet if you left ice cream out for me on Halloween or on my birthday or something.
Oh.
Because on my... some of my family is Wiccan, and the big thing for Halloween, which they don't call it Halloween, but they'll leave food out that night for the spirits of their loved ones, because since our world and their world is the closest on Halloween night, then it's essentially having dinner with them.
That's really sweet.
One night a year. So if I do die, you better leave some ice cream out.
That's a Jewish tradition too, where they leave, I guess it's not for your loved ones, but it's for Elijah. They leave a plate out for Elijah.
All right, well...
So, and then they leave like a place setting for him.
Well, then leave ice cream for me.
All right. You're Elijah.
Today.
2.0.
So, basically they fled because I couldn't handle it.
Sure.
And then the house changed a bunch of hands in that time, but it basically kept going back to this family called the Kiefers who owned it, and they were just renting it out to people. And that was during the 1940s. Mm-hmm. But they actually... I guess they knew about the stories of it being haunted and didn't actually ever step foot in the house. They just would give their renters the keys and be like, good luck. Just leave. They actually lived in an RV parked outside the house.
Wait, what?
They would not go in the house. They just happened to be the landlords of the haunted house.
And they lived outside of it?
And they lived outside of it.
All right.
So that was more of a fun fact. Nothing really came out of it. So in the 1970s... a family finally bought the house, and they were the Hinshaws. Mm-hmm. Arnold and Ginger Hinshaw.
Ginger Hinshaw.
And it was the two of them and their 6 kids, and they moved into Summerwind, but only for 6 months. So they knew that the place was weird as soon as they moved in. They felt shadows and saw shadows in the hallways. They heard mumbled voices in empty rooms, and then if they went into the room, that was when the sound would stop, as if you had found the sound, or once you were looking for the sound, it would it didn't want you to find it. So they just basically, it was typical things, furniture would move around the house. And so they knew that there was something going on. And they also started seeing an apparition of a woman who would just regularly float past them down the hallway. And friends of theirs also saw this woman walking around the halls when they were alone. Mm-hmm. And appliances like their hot water heater would break down and then repair itself before it could get fixed. Or it would break, and then until they said, oh, we need to get it fixed, then all of a sudden it would fix itself.
What?
Windows and doors would close and then reopen themselves. And then if there was a window that was particularly hard to open, it would only open and close itself. And all day long. The only way they could keep certain windows shut is if they nailed them shut. Otherwise, they just kept opening and closing by themselves all day. So another time, Arnold Hinshaw, he walked out to his car for work, and the car literally caught on fire by itself. And there's still no reason for it.
What?
It just went boof. That was boof if you didn't hear it. So.
Oh, yeah, that was...
The sound of fire.
I thought for a second that my house was on fire. When
I know. I wanted to reassure you that you are in no harm today.
It was so realistic.
So despite all of this weird, all these weird events, it didn't really stop them. They just tried to explain it away with, oh, well, it's just really old, and so the floorboards creak, and that's why my car catches on fire.
Cars catch on fire. It's no big deal.
So they thought their way to fix it was to do renovation. So they started hiring a bunch of workers to come into the house and fix it. But a lot of the workers in town would refuse to go into the house, and most of them would fake sick and say they couldn't come in. And some of them flat out just said, I'm not going in that house.
Is it because they knew beforehand, or they were just I don't get a good feeling?
I think a combo.
Okay.
But I mean, people did know about the Lamont ghost where he shot at nothing and stuff like that. So many workers were calling out sick that eventually the Hinshaws were well, let's just do the renovations by ourselves. So one day they decided that they were going to paint a closet upstairs. And it was Arnold and Ginger, husband and wife. and they were going to paint the closet upstairs. So they had this like I guess a shelving unit that was essentially nailed to the wall, or at least leaning against the wall, and they tried to take it away so that they could paint the whole wall and not get any paint on the furniture. So they pulled it out, and there was this hole in the wall, and it was like a dark space. And so he grabbed a flashlight, and he started looking in there, and he thought he could see in there, but he couldn't get a really good look. And right when he thought that he was, done trying, his flashlight caught a glimpse of a corpse.
I'm sorry. What?
And he couldn't see. He assumed that maybe it was like an animal that was dead or something in there. He was like, oh, maybe like a raccoon got in there and died.
Oh, maybe this is where they store their Halloween decorations.
Right, yeah. And so he couldn't get in, and the hole was too small for him to be able to like climb in. And so he waited till his kids got home and recruited his daughter, Mary.
No.
And he was like, Mary, girl, you're going to take one for the team and get in that hole. And so he pushed her into the wall up from upstairs, gave her a flashlight, and heard her screaming and pulled her out. And it was a human corpse.
I'm sorry.
And he made her go back in and then pull out the corpse. Father of the year.
I'm sorry. Are you fucking kidding with me?
No. So basically, it was a human corpse. It was supposedly a woman with, there was still some brown hair left on the skull.
No. Mary, are you seeing a psychiatrist?
Mary needs a drink. Mary needs to go to a bar.
Mary, can I buy you?
Mary was 11, by the way.
Can I buy you a beer, Mary?
Mary needs a whole fifth of whiskey.
Oh,
so she pulled out a skull that still had old black hair on it.
No.
Also pulled out an arm and a portion of a leg.
What the fuck?
So then, I mean, he's already making good decisions, right?
Oh, yeah, he's father of the year, like you said.
So then he decides not to report it to the police. They put it back in the wall.
What?
And they left it there.
What?
They just put it back where they found it.
He's like...
He was very much me. He was like, let go, let God. I don't want to know.
No.
Not my business.
Don't approve. He's
like prison mentality. Keep your eyes and ears open. Keep your mouth shut.
He's like, Mary, take this skull covered in hair.
Yep.
Place it where you found it.
Place it exactly as you saw it. Don't let anyone know that it has been touched.
It's not finders keepers in this house.
Mary, your fingerprints are the one all over that corpse, not me.
Oh my God, Mary.
Mary made a mistake.
Mary.
Oh, they're after Mary.
Oh my God.
Mary, run, girl.
Mary.
Run,
Mary.
bitch, run. Okay, so,
Mary, I want to help you.
I think Mary's long gone.
Can you? Oh, is she dead?
Well, this was in like 1970s.
Yeah,
no,
70s.
She's kicking. She's kicking.
She's probably like our parents' age.
Oh, man. Another reason why that generation had kids like us.
But that's the thing.
Because they all had some weird, fucked up experiences.
They're psychologically damaged.
Social services was not as good as it is now.
Hello, everyone. Are you over the age of 40? You're psychologically damaged. That's the statement this millennial podcast is making.
You're the reason all of your millennial children still live with you.
I'm joking. Please don't hate me.
You can find our Patreon at help. Okay, so they just put the corpse right back where they found it. And they just decided that that was the best place for it to be.
Oh, it was, for sure.
So soon after this, can you imagine, things got worse. Oh, also fun fact, the skeleton bore a strong resemblance to the spirit of the woman that everyone had been seeing walking around the house.
Can you imagine how traumatized those children must have been?
They must have just thought, like, I don't even know what they thought. I have no idea. Imagine thinking, in my mind, if you're a small child and you just see someone walking up and down the hall, I would think it was like a maid or,
right,
you know, maybe your friend's parent that's always around. And then all of a sudden you find them again on the other side of a wall and it's only their bones.
And they're dead and decomposing.
Yeah.
And you have to touch their skull.
And then my sister Mary's throwing her back into the wall saying, I saw nothing, I saw nothing.
My sister Mary. That sounds like a great horror movie. My Sister Mary.
That's a Lifetime movie waiting to happen. So the Hinshaws did not report it, put it back, left it alone. Things got worse.
I'm sorry. This is making me drink.
How did you get through that other one so fast?
Like, listen to your story and then get back to me.
So, Arnold began staying up very late and having pretty wild insomnia.
Which one's Arnold? The dad?
The dad. Arnold got some pretty gnarly insomnia, started staying up super late, and eventually just never slept.
Oh, no.
And he began playing the organ at all hours of the night.
I'm sorry.
They had a Hammond organ.
Did they like...
They like bought it. It was like a wedding present or something. And then they always had it. And he never really played it until after like all these events started happening. And then he would only play it loudly and poorly all night long.
Oh, it's so funny that like I put that on our wedding registry also.
Did you?
On our Pottery Barn.
Well, when Blaze starts playing it at 3 a.m., run.
The organ.
So,
can you imagine if I was like, I'd like a $2,500 organ from Pottery Barn. Thank you.
Please. So that's the Beyond part of Bed Bath & Beyond, by the way. So he began playing it all night long, and it became like basically a frenzied mixture of sounds. Like,
oh, no.
It made no sense. He was just playing random distorted chords.
Yeah, my favorite thing is that you said he started playing it badly, like poorly.
Yeah.
All night.
Yeah. And so he also claimed, because his wife was like, I'm trying to sleep. Like, can you stop?
Please.
And he said, no, I have to do it to keep the demons at bay.
No.
Yeah. So his playing became so chaotic that his wife and children started sleeping in one bed together, crying and cowering in fear. By the way, that's kind of dramatic. Like, it's one thing to play the organ badly, but don't act like it's the end of the world. You know?
It's like, Dad just can't get the minor scale wrong. We're all sobbing.
It's like what parents probably do, like hold each other at night when they buy their kid a set of drums. It's like,
yes.
What did we do? Where did we go wrong? So during this time, while he was like losing his mind at night, Ginger also attempted suicide.
Oh, no.
Didn't succeed, but attempted.
Oh, no.
While Arnold was sent away for treatment to like maybe just get a fucking nap in, Ginger and the kids moved to live with her parents.
Do you know what she did as like committing?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Probably could have looked it up. I just chose to carry on. So Arnold and Ginger ultimately got divorced, but she ended up marrying another guy named George. And she lived with him, and things seemed to be going fine because now they were all out of the house.
Right.
So they're not living there anymore.
Were the kids with her?
The kids were with her. Yeah, probably.
Her and George?
Yeah. And a few years later, her father announced that he was going to buy the Summerwind Mansion, and he wanted to turn it into a restaurant and inn with his wife.
That seems like a great idea.
Well, also this guy, I found out he was a popcorn vendor as his career. So I don't think first of all, what a time where you could be a popcorn vendor and just like live off of that. And then also buy a mansion.
What a time. What a life.
What a life.
What a life buying a mansion off your popcorn fortune.
I don't know what kind of popcorn he's vending, but I think it's laced. And it's the 70s, so you know he was making it good.
Oh, it was the 70s, huh? Mm-hmm. Some
sprinkled some Quaaludes on it or some shit. I don't know.
Quaalude popcorn.
Some acid popcorn. So he wanted to turn it into an inn, and he has no idea what happened to his daughter there. They didn't tell anyone about how haunted it was.
Did the previous husband still own it? Or like, how's he getting a hold of it?
He sold it because he had to leave to go get treatment, apparently. Mm-hmm. It was very vague, but basically the family moved out and split up.
So he sold it to
He sold it back to that poor family, the Kiefers, who just can't get their hands off of it.
So then her dad was like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Apparently, he figured out through the Kiefers that it was haunted. Mm-hmm. And it didn't stop him. But he was very fascinated with paranormal activity, so he got way too curious.
Oh, no.
He started using a Ouija board.
Nope.
And he, I guess, fell into a trance where he saw himself in the basement of the house, and he was looking through the cellar, and he found a deed. I don't know if that came out right. He found a deed to the house, and it apparently he spoke to the spirit in the house named John Carver, who's not a woman, by the way, so apparently there's more than one spirit. But John Carver also has the description of the spirit that Robert Lamont saw, the one that he shot at.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
So Robert Lamont described what he saw, and it's eerily like the figure that was seen in this trance with Ginger's dad.
Yowza.
And apparently the guy said his name was John Carver. He was, I guess, some frontiersman who, something about how he owned the property, but he was looking for the deed because he made a trade with an Indian tribe on the land, and they gave him a third of Wisconsin. But he couldn't find the deed.
Oh, okay.
A third. And apparently, so this whole vision, while it was happening, I guess John Carver, the ghost, was saying, I need your help to find the deed. It's somewhere in the foundation of the house. And he won't rest until he finds the deed to own the land. Also, for skeptics out there was a reporter who actually dug into this and tried to find a deed, and it supposedly does not exist. They've also talked to people who back in 1916 helped lay down foundation, and they said that they never hid anything in the house, and even if they did, it wouldn't make sense because, I guess 130 years after John Carver died is when they laid the foundation, so how would John Carver have even known? And something about, the government ended up saying that land agreements with Indian tribes weren't valid. So even if they did find a deed, it would be worthless. And also it didn't belong to Ginger's dad. So it's not like he could have a valid land agreement where he owned a third of Wisconsin. I don't really know what was going on.
What on earth?
But there was, for skeptics out there wondering if any of that was proven correct or not, it was looked into, and it's just kind of understood that there's no real answer.
Okay.
While he was in this trance, he began regularly having experiences with John Carver, either in dreams and other trances or while talking through the Ouija board. This just became a regular thing.
Oh, no.
He also ended up writing a book that was published in 1979 under the name Wolfgang von Bober, which is a ghostwriter name, obviously.
A ghost, right?
Yes, Christine, good job.
I'm sorry, I'm trying.
And it was a book called The Carver Effect. And it was basically a tell-all of his experiences of his communication with John Carver. It's also apparently very out of print and very hard to find, in case anyone's trying to Google it right now as you listen to me talk. To the sultry sounds of M. Schultz.
I'm not gonna...
You didn't give me the chance.
I'm just gonna blankly stare at you and let you finish that off.
So, anyway, even though he knew it was haunted, he was like, well, I already bought this house, so I might as well just try to work on it and make do with what I have. So Ginger ended up moving back in with her husband, George, to help her dad and her brother. So, the dad's son also came, and his name was Carl, the Ginger's brother.
Classic Carl.
Classic Carl. With a K, by the way.
Oh, for God's sakes.
And so Carl, who was Ginger's brother, and then Ginger's husband, George, all moved in with the dad to help with renovations. And poor Ginger was probably like, look, I've been doing renovations on this house a while back, and I don't want to come back to this. So as they were wandering around and they got to the second floor, her husband spotted that the closet had a secret compartment in the wall.
Oh, come on.
Because Ginger still has this she's the one you want on your side in prison. She doesn't fucking say a word, does she? Mm-mm. For her husband to not know about this yet? If I thought I was never going back to this house, because there were several years between her leaving and her father buying this house.
Right.
If she thought she was never going back, the next guy I married, I would have for sure been like, you want to hear some bullshit that I saw?
Right.
Apparently
maybe
not.
we could get some money off a radio deal. Yeah. I have some stories.
Want to hear a wild story about my last husband?
Listen, one glass of wine.
He literally left a corpse in the building after our child had to fish it out for him.
After she made my daughter touch its skull.
Yeah. So anyway, she never said anything to him because he found the secret compartment and he was going to start looking through it. And she was like, no, don't go there. Don't go. And he was like, why? You're being really fucking weird about this. And she was like, okay, listen, there's a corpse in the wall. I'm not trying to freak you out, but I'm just saying, you're going to find yourself a corpse if you keep looking.
Don't overreact.
Honestly, if you overreact, I'm going to overreact, and it's just not a good time for either of us.
It's not, and it's not good for the children. Let's just all breathe, and...
It would be foolish to think too hard on this.
Yes.
So anyway, he heard... there's a corpse in the wall, and he was like, fuck you, Ginger. I'm going to go look in the wall and see it. And so he rushed back and tried to, pull it out of the wall, but there was nothing there.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, and also, by the way, that never gets resolved, and there's no answer to it.
What?
So
The corpse just disappears?
it just went away. So a couple theories. One thinks like either someone went back and took it at some point, or the corpse itself was its own haunting where it was replaying something that happened at one point.
So it's like a residual.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
They think it was like an emotional or like energy imprint that happened on the house, and they just kind of saw it and experienced it and interacted with it, and then it went away. So it's one theory. Okay, so eventually everyone was like, look, I'm going to get out of this house. This is just too weird.
Smart.
So the only one that was hanging around still was Carl. Classic Carl.
Classic. Carl.
So basically he went there for last minute repairs one night, and it started to rain, so he was going around closing all the windows. While he was upstairs in the hallway, he heard someone call his name, which is when I would run the other direction.
Hell yes.
But of course, he walks right into the room where the sound was.
No.
And he kept hearing his name, and he kept hearing it in whispers and then laughter.
Carl.
No, like, Carl. Like, fucking creepy.
You're going to give me nightmares.
Like some Annabelle shit.
Carl.
Like that game, the clapping movie, Have you ever seen that one?
As if you
Of course
think,
you haven't.
As if you think I've seen
It's
that.
called, it's not hide and seek. It's some scary movie where like there's like, it's a haunted house, and the way you try to find it is you have to play hide and seek with it, where you follow the claps.
Absolutely not.
So you keep like from upstairs, you'll hear like, and then as you get closer, you'll hear like,
No, thank you. Why the fuck is that a
and
movie?
then it kills you.
And then it kills you.
So anyway, so he follows it. And when he gets to the room that happened to be the room where Robert Lamont and his wife were once eating ice cream, all of a sudden he hears 2 pistol shots and he can smell gunpowder. And then he turns around, and the wall that's leading to the cellar now has 2 bullet holes in it that at one point had been covered up during earlier repairs, but now they're right there again.
Oh, no.
And he went over to see if they were fresh, even though he couldn't find anyone in the house. Nobody could have possibly shot it and then ran away in time. But he went over to see if they were brand new, and they were the same old ones that had been like the edges had been worn down and everything. But for some reason, like whatever they used to cover it up was just now gone.
Oh, no.
So the structure of the house is just like disappearing and showing up at its own will. That was basically the end of that, where like it was just like they had smoothed over, and they were definitely the old bullet holes that were covered up, but for some reason are showing up again.
Yikes.
So more workmen were refusing to stay on the job. They kept saying that tools were disappearing, and they kept getting stared at, and they were hearing people laugh at them and talk to them and like whisper to them. And even the wife was like, I agree. I feel like someone's staring at me whenever I come to visit this house. And the last super weird thing about this house, which is also very original for a ghost story, is that the size of the rooms kept changing.
What?
So, like the rooms would expand and shrink on their own. So like you would measure a room and it would be a totally different size the next day.
What?
So the measurements were usually larger than what the blueprints had originally said. And then they'd go from either incredibly larger to like half the size of what the blueprint said.
What the fuck?
At one point, it was estimated that you could have 150 people in one room, and then they remeasured it, and you could only get 70 in there.
What the hell?
And photographs were taken of the house. So like they took pictures of every room.
Right.
And then they compared them to Ginger's pictures when she used to live in the house with her ex.
Right.
And the pictures, so like when she lived with her ex, there were these certain curtains that would hang on the window. And then since they've moved away and time's passed, those curtains weren't there anymore. But when they took the new pictures, those curtains were in the room, in the picture. But if they were standing in the room and took a picture of that room, on like the picture that developed and was in their hand would have the curtains. But if you looked at the window, there would be no curtains there.
What the hell?
So, pretty wild. Anyway, so they ended up saying this is too much, and they ended up abandoning the project. To this day, the deed was never found. And then in 1983 or 1986, a bunch of Canadian investors tried to buy the land and thought they could do something with it, but it ended up just never working out. Like, just financially, they couldn't keep up with it. And then 2 years later, in 1988, it got struck by lightning. And the whole place caught on fire. Like, by the time the fire department got there, all that was left was a couple chimneys and just all rubble.
Oh, no.
So now, per usual, people are, like, paranormal enthusiasts are trying to raise money to restore it and then turn it into a bed and breakfast. Because that's what everyone does. But that is the Summerwind Mansion in Wisconsin.
Oh, my God. Did I ever tell you about the time when we found like a secret, like room, not a room, but like a secret area in our attic at my mom's house growing up?
No. How long had you lived there before you found this?
A few years.
That's what makes it creepy.
Yeah, it was.
What was in it?
My friend and I decided we were like treasure hunters, and this is Celine, who has all the paranormal experiences.
Oh, I've never met Celine, but I love Celine.
I know, she has like the craziest fucking stories. And so I was always just like along for the ride, and I was always into it, and I was like, let's find treasure. So we had this like metal detector that we got from somebody, and we're like, we're gonna find treasure in our house.
And you did.
It was so stupid. We were like, we're gonna walk around and like pull on the floorboards because we, read too much
Hardy Boys and
Hardy
Nancy
Boys,
Drew, apparently.
Nancy Drew, exactly. And we were like, oh, we're Harriet the Spy. We will find clues. And so we were looking around, and then in my attic, we had this like, in my bedroom, we had this little like closet door that was about 2.5 feet high, and it was purple, and like you opened it and you could like, we would like sit in there and watch movies and like sneak like Cocoa Puffs up there and eat them at night, whatever. And one day we found this like panel on the side, and we like put the metal detector, and it was like going crazy. And we were like, oh, let's get the wood paneling off. And so we like pried the wood paneling off, and there's this giant Ziploc bag of jewelry back there.
Shut up.
And we were like, whoa, we actually found treasure.
Oh my God. Wow, the one time children actually think they're going to do something and it works.
And my mom was just like, oh, whatever. It's just like the last kid who lived here probably hid his mom's jewelry upstairs. But we...
Right, sure.
And now
sure.
looking back, I'm just like...
That's too fucked up.
It was fucking weird. And we still had... it's probably still somewhere, but like we have a big Ziploc bag, and it had like all this jewelry and shit in it. And it was hidden behind like this panel in the teeny tiny attic closet.
Oh my God.
And then covered in a trash bag. And we like pulled it out, and we were like, wow.
Oh my God.
Treasure. And now I'm like, holy fuck, that's so creepy.
That's so creepy. No one put something in a bag, in a floorboard, in a wall, in a hole in an attic for like a laugh.
And the kid before
like there's
us,
a reason.
My mom always told us it was just the kid who lived there before us, and he was like younger than me, so he was probably like 9. And I'm like, I don't know if he would have thought to like drill the plywood to the wall
or go in an attic by himself at 9 years old
and hide his mom's jewelry or whatever. So anyway, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, that's kind of fucked up. But
that's entirely fucked up. That is not the story that happened, by the way.
Thank God it was
just here to shake you into reality. Like a 9-year-old did not hide his mom's jewelry in the wall.
Well, that's what I've always been told. So now that you tell me these things, I'm like, maybe it was a little weirder than that.
I only think of you remember the movie The Little Vampire with Jonathan Lipnicki?
No.
Someone will. But
I'm sure everyone but me will.
You know Jonathan Lipnicki? He was the big head in Jerry Maguire. The little kid who was really cute. He was in Stuart Little. He was in The Little Vampire, and basically he lived in a house that used to belong to like the mob boss vampires, like the castle of the vampires, and a whole bunch of shit that like keeps them alive or is supposed to save them is hidden under the floorboards in his bedroom. So every time I think of anything being in a floorboard, I think of The Little Vampire.
That's kind of cute.
It's much cuter than what it probably really is.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, you want to tell me something else that's not cute?
Yes, let's talk about something else besides my childhood horrors. Okay, so just like you were saved by Kyler and her suggestion last week, I got a suggestion actually today, and I had like 3 other things that I was kind of
iffy about.
Yeah, like debating between. And then today, a new friend named Natalie emailed us.
Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Natalie. And she sent this suggestion. And at first I was like, I've never heard of this before. And so I just thought, oh, I'll Google it. And I got sucked in. And
is it a ride and a half?
It's a ride and a fucking half. And to quote Natalie, it's a bowl of wild.
A bowl of wild.
Bowl of wild.
Have not heard that one before, but I like it.
I like it too. And so this is the story of the New Orleans Rampart Street murder house.
Oh.
or the Zack and Addie murder-suicide?
No, I have not heard about this. Let's go.
Me neither. Okay.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So Natalie had heard of the story because her friend is a historian and was actually a tour guide for a haunted history group in the area in New Orleans. So she got like the background scoop. So it was really cool to have her take on it. And then I went and researched it myself, and it's just fucking crazy. All right. So some of the sources I used were historicmysteries.com, Destination America, and ABC News.
You always make me look like a piece of shit when you like cite your sources.
I don't, because I feel like for mine, it's like real people and their facts about like how they died and shit.
Right, and mine's all theory.
Yeah, I feel like it's...
For the record, my sources are always the first 3 pages of Google. Just in case people are wondering.
But that's the thing. I feel like I have to be more careful because it's like, I don't want to like slander people who don't.
Any information I ever give on this podcast can be found on the first 3 pages of Google if you type in the house I'm talking about.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to make myself sound better than I am.
That's fine.
It's pretty easy. Okay.
I'll let you have it.
So let's go. In October of 2006, police responded to an emergency call from the Omni Hotel in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Okay.
When they arrived, they saw that a man had jumped off the roof of the hotel.
Oh, no.
Had landed 5 stories down on the roof of the parking garage, and had died on impact.
Oh, shit.
They immediately noted that it looked like a suicide, and their suspicions were confirmed when they found a 5-page suicide note in the man's front pocket. The man's name was Zack Bowen, and the note he had written included instructions leading police to the apartment he shared with his girlfriend, where they would find pieces of her dismembered body spread around the apartment.
Oh, no.
So a little bit on Zack Bowen.
So a recap.
So let's rewind.
Hey, it's Zach. You're probably wondering how I got here. Record scratch.
Oh my God.
Oh, but it's not funny at all. It's not funny. It's not funny.
It's like not funny, but it's like exactly the way that I set it up to be.
Exactly.
I feel like I'm presenting it like it's some sort of ABC Family.
Right. It's super fucked up. Like the cops found a note in his pocket and then like freeze frame, record scratch. Hey guys, it's probably like, wondering how I ended up here.
Let's rewind. Oh my God. Okay. Yes.
Okay. Anyway, wow.
So there's that.
We're assholes. I know. Before you guys write to us saying we're assholes, we're assholes.
We know.
And that's why we drink. And that's why we drink.
Damn it, we know.
We're sitting literally under a plunger tent.
A plunger with a child sheet.
We're not good people. Don't be shocked.
Don't be.
We may have voices of angels, but, you know, don't be fooled.
Our voices may lull you into a false sense of security, but...
Yeah, we have hearts of charcoal.
Hearts of charcoal.
If hearts at all.
Oh, man.
It's getting weird.
It's getting dark and weird. So anyway, you may wonder how Zack Bowen got there. Zack Bowen. I'm going to give you a little rewind on Zack Bowen. He was honestly, the way they described him was that he was a typical dude, pretty decent, like...
That's not a typical dude, by the way.
Pretty decent.
Pretty decent. It was a low blow, but it needed to be said.
You would know. All right. Zack Bowen. He was a pretty standard dude. He was like not
standard way to put it. I saw you change it.
What did I say before?
You're like, he's a typical guy, he's a standard guy instead of just like a decent guy.
Oh, a decent guy.
Went from decent to standard real quick.
All right. He's a guy. Is that better?
He's a man. He's a man.
He is a man. He was not, particularly attractive. He wasn't unattractive. He wasn't like a mean guy. He wasn't,
He's all around average.
Average guy. He wasn't like super popular. Joe Schmo. He was pretty average American. He had plenty of friends. He was sociable, but at the same time, he was like, had a lot of shit that he was hiding from people. Mm-hmm. So when Zack was 18 years old, he met a 28-year-old stripper named Lena Shupak. The two got married, and according to some sources, Zack joined the military in order to support her and the 2 children that they had together. Mm-hmm. So he joined the army, and he pretty quickly rose to the rank of sergeant. and he toured in Kosovo and Iraq. So, and he was also in Abu Ghraib. At that point, some of his friends said that he kind of had changed. His attitude had changed. He was less happy. He wanted to come home. He was struggling. You know, makes sense. You're spending a lot of time abroad in war zones. Sure, that's bound to happen. So after a while, Zack got his wish to come home. He was discharged from the army. He did receive plenty of medals, including the NATO medal and the Presidential Unit Citation. But he was also kind of bitter about leaving. He felt like it wasn't the most honorable way to leave the army. And when he returned, he decided to become a bartender in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. So he started working in the French Quarter, and he and his wife, who he had been dating, or who he'd been married to that whole time, ended up separating pretty quickly after he returned. And pretty quickly after that, he met a woman named Addie Hall, who was another bartender. And the two loved to drink, which was like their main...
So you.
So me. It was like their main thing they had in common, basically. Mm-hmm. And then, sadly, tragically, Hurricane Katrina hit. Oh, no. Which, as we all remember, was...
not good.
Not good. Just a fucking nightmare and a half. So they actually became sort of local heroes during this time because they decided to stay in town and ride out the storm. And they were featured on a lot of local news articles because they were called local folk heroes in some articles because they shacked up together, they refused to evacuate, and would sort of like, they went to survival mode. For example, they fashioned their own makeshift stove. They would barter with other people in town. They would even serve cocktails for people who were like stuck in town and couldn't leave. Mm-hmm. So they really became this sort of like staple in town during the storm. And they sort of lived the survivalist lifestyle where they didn't have electricity, they didn't have running water, but they sort of thrived.
They made it work.
Yeah, and they almost thrived in it where they like loved just being in that environment of like, it's just us against the world and we're gonna, band together.
Really like a fucked up romance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like their romance.
Something intimate about in times of conflict banding together.
Totally. And that's how they thrived. So Hall, the woman, Addie Hall, she actually gained some notoriety in town because she would flash police officers and show her breasts. And that, in turn, would increase patrols in their neighborhood.
You know what? Doing what you gotta do.
Entrepreneur, am I right?
I mean, sex workers are the reason that a lot of cities in America lasted.
Are thriving.
That's the only reason that a lot of cities like got built up.
Yeah.
So, not knocking them at all. They do what they gotta do and it works. Sex sells.
And sex sells. And she wasn't, she wasn't a sex worker. Some people thought she was some people say she was a stripper, but she wasn't a sex worker. But she did show her breasts to police, and I guess for that reason, it did increase patrolling in their neighborhood. So a lot of people were really thankful for her. And basically, they loved it. But then pretty soon after that, things in New Orleans returned to, quote unquote normal. People were recovering from the storm. People were coming back to the city, rebuilding, and that kind of thing. Zack and Addie moved into a new apartment above the city's famous voodoo spiritual temple.
Ooh.
Have you heard of that?
No, but it's somewhere I want to go.
It's at 826 North Rampart Street. And it's, I'll tell you what it is in a minute.
All right, please do.
So they moved above this voodoo temple, and their fights, according to the landlord, reached an all-time high at this point.
Oh,
Hall stopped going to work. Zack started taking drugs and alcohol, and it just became like part of their life. Apparently, they had a friend named Squirrel.
All right.
Sure.
Why not?
We all need
I have a friend named Meatball, so. I'm not kidding.
I know.
So, they probably met in college like I met Meatball. You don't really get a name like that as an adult.
You don't. Yeah, you got to
It just sticks with you.
Adopt it early on.
Yeah, you got to really want it.
I tried to be Chrissy Kiwi once.
I'm sorry. Say it again.
I tried to be Chrissy Kiwi once.
Chrissy Kiwi.
It didn't work.
To who did you request that and when?
I don't know, my 8th grade Latin class.
There it is.
Yep. Let's pretend that didn't happen. So Squirrel was allegedly supplying them with a steady stream of cocaine. So on top of everything else, they were doing drugs. They weren't going to work. Their fights were intensifying, and it got to a bad point. So on October 5th, 2006, the couple got into a big fight. Addie accused Zack of cheating on her. So Zack strangled Addie to death in the bathtub. And then in his note that they found after he'd committed suicide, he explained, quote, "I killed her at 1 a.m. Thursday, October 5th. I very calmly strangled her. It was very quick." He then cut her body into pieces. He placed her head on the stove and put her feet in another pot with her hands, and then put her legs in the oven.
The fuck? Why? To store it?
The remainder of her body, her torso, which you know how I feel about torsos, was put in the refrigerator in a large Ziploc bag.
Right, that needed to be cold.
But
the disembodied feet that I love so much had to be in a pot with hands.
Let's just cook those down. Yeah.
This is so gross.
He then cooked the body parts in what he called an attempt to separate the meat from the bone. It's assumed now that he was trying to get rid of evidence because there was no evidence to suggest that he ate any part of her. So he did cook pretty much all of her body. He was just cooking it down.
What a specific way. I mean, I understand you're from Louisiana, so you know how to barbecue. So if you're ever going to learn how to separate meat and a bone, do it in the deep South. But why wouldn't you just throw it in a river or burn it, put it on fire?
You'll find out.
Oh my God.
I know, it gets there. I know. It's crazy. Just wait. Once Addie was dead, Zack spent some time in the apartment spray painting messages on the walls and writing his 5-page suicide note.
Ugh.
In addition to those fun hobbies, he also went out drinking, he went to strip clubs, he did drugs with his friends, and 11 days later, he jumped from the roof to his death. So as far as the letter goes, they found it in his front pocket after his suicide, and it told police where he lived, where they would find Addie, and why he did what he did. So I'm just going to read it was a 5-page suicide note, but I'm just going to read one paragraph. "This is not accidental. I had to take my own life to pay for the one I took. If you send a patrol car to 826 North Rampart, you will find the dismembered corpse of my girlfriend Addie in the oven, on the stove, and in the fridge, and a full signed confession from myself, Zack Bowen. I scared myself not by the action of calmly strangling the woman I've loved for 1.5 years and then desecrating her body, but by my entire lack of remorse. I've known forever how horrible of a person I am. Ask anyone, and decided to quit my jobs and spend the $1,500 I had being happy until I killed myself. So that's what I did. Good food, good drugs, good strippers, good friends, and any loose ends I may have had. I didn't contact any of my family, so that'll explain the shock. And I had a fantastic time living out my days. It's just about time now."
Wow.
And that's one paragraph out of 5 pages.
You know, at least there's no at least, but at least he, at least gave them, confirmation of... At least he gave them a confirmation of, I did it.
For sure. And they actually compared it in an article I read to Albert Fish and Ed Gein, where it's they never had any remorse. They never had any, second thoughts.
Yeah.
Whereas he, clearly had, demons and was living with guilt. And
he at least had remorse for not having remorse.
For sure. He knew there was something wrong with him.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. So that was an interesting twist on it, is that, he was
aware that there was something wrong.
Mm-hmm, exactly. He also provided the police with his keys and the information for his landlord. So when police finally got into the apartment, they found spray-painted messages on the walls that said, "Please call my wife. I love her. I'm a total failure. Look in the oven. Please help me stop the pain."
God.
He also said that he had burned himself with a cigarette for every year of his life as punishment for his failures.
Jeez.
Yeah. This is where things get interesting.
Okay. Take me there.
So Zack and Addie had been living on the floor above New Orleans' well-respected voodoo spiritual temple.
Uh-huh.
The Voodoo Spiritual Temple was established in 1990 by Priestess Miriam and Priest Oswan Kamani. It's the only formally established spiritual temple with a focus on traditional West African spiritual and herbal healing practices currently existing in New Orleans. So it's like a well-respected and established voodoo center. Mm-hmm. And some people believe, this is pretty common belief actually, that dark forces surrounding the Voodoo Spiritual Temple took a hold on the couple.
Not surprised.
And drove them to madness.
As a believer, if you're going to move into something called the Voodoo Temple,
yep.
What the hell do you think is going to happen to you?
Well, it's interesting because like every time you look up this article or this story, it always has that aspect to it. It's not even like you can find it. You can't find the story without that angle. And the only thing is like the Voodoo Temple is like highly respected. It's very positive. Typically, like there's the people who argue against that say like it's not a negative place. There's not negative energy. So that's the only kind of, I'm not trying to say like, oh, it's voodoo, so it's got to be like nasty, evil, whatever. Mm-hmm. But it is like a big theory. So to add to that theory, several people who lived at this location, whether they knew where they were living or not, because it's kind of an apartment building above, have reported severe paranormal activity, including feelings of being watched, hearing voices, and feeling as though the apartment itself was physically pressing in on them.
Ugh, no, thank you.
I know. Natalie, who sent us the email about it, she mentioned that the building is haunted by a little boy who isn't violent but just seems scared. So Natalie's friend, who's the tour guide there, ran into a couple of guys who lived in the exact apartment where Addie and Zach lived. And they said, oh, for sure, it's haunted. So just like a personal experience. So in the aftermath of the tragedy, some people have started to wonder if there like is a supernatural element involved. And it's kind of conflicting because a lot of people believe, you know, there was obviously drugs and alcohol involved. He had been in the military, so PTSD, you know, may have played a big part. But a lot of people believe that there's no way that like such a well-liked, wonderful, you know, well-adjusted guy could have done this. So it's kind of up in the air. Some people even believe that Zach Bowen had been possessed by an entity who resided in the Voodoo Temple. But at the same time, like I was saying earlier, it's hard to believe that the priestess who lives there named Miriam Chamani, she's very well respected, very positive in the community, and people have a hard time believing that she would have anything
to do with it.
Yeah, or would have allowed such a negative entity to be like
around
in her sanctuary.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So as of right now, the Rampart Street Murder House, as it's called, is on New Orleans' list of most haunted properties. It basically didn't get much mainstream attention until these murders, for obvious reasons. The place was on Paranormal Lockdown this past February on TLC.
Love a good TLC show.
Me too. And I haven't watched that episode, but I'm going to do it after this. Interestingly enough, there was also a documentary called Zack and Addie, which played at the 2014 New Orleans Film Festival. And it featured it was about the two of them and their murder-suicide. And it featured one of their best friends named Margaret Sanchez, who was the star narrator. And she talked about how her very best friend, Zack and Addie, fell in love like during the hurricane and how they survived it and how tragic it was and all that
Imagine
good
being
stuff.
that girl. Imagine, of course you're going to make a documentary. Like, how else are you going to get out all your energy about that?
Yeah, so she was basically almost the narrator of this guy's documentary, being like, I can talk you through, like, because she knew both of them so well and was so close to them. So fun fact.
It's not fun, is it?
It's not really.
What?
Margaret Sanchez, who I just mentioned, 2 years later was arrested with her lover, Terry Speaks, for stabbing and dismembering a 22-year-old woman in New Orleans.
Weird.
Yeah.
So either she had those tendencies already or they influenced her.
Something like that. So in June of 2016, she pled guilty and was sentenced to 40 years in prison. So she was the main character in this documentary.
About Yeah.
about her best
Better friends, yeah.
And then shortly after that, she and her boyfriend also stabbed and dismembered a 22-year-old dancer.
It's almost like they were copycatting or something like that.
Really weird.
That's way too close to home.
Really weird. There are articles called like the woman close to both, like, you know, the common denominator.
Like that, yeah.
Yeah, like she was like.
But also, if you saw your two best friends go through this and one of them tried to disembody someone and it didn't work out well, why would you do it next?
Well, this is my going back to your earlier point. Guess how they got caught?
How?
She tried to hide the body parts. They tried to hide the body parts in the bayous. But Natalie, my new good friend, hey Natalie, she gave me some info on that, and apparently the reason they got caught is because the bayous are so like moist and like warm that you can't dispose of body parts because they won't
sink?
disintegrate, they won't rot, like they will just stay there. So they found all these body parts scattered through the bayous, and that's how they caught her. So it's like, just remember when you were saying why wouldn't you get rid of them?
In the water, yeah.
So that's how their friend got caught 2 years later. So basically,
so the moral of the story is don't disembody anyone because no matter what, you'll get caught.
Yep.
I'm just saying.
So basically, after months and months, they found the body parts. So she was caught. She was put in prison for 40 years. But it's really crazy to watch the documentary and see her talk about her best friends, and she's crying. She's like, I can't believe this would ever happen. He was such a good guy. But it wasn't like, oh, she just like accidentally killed somebody. It was like she and her boyfriend.
Like it was like
totally premeditated. They lured a 22-year-old girl by saying, if you come to our place, we'll give you more money. And she had a little daughter.
Aww.
This was really upsetting. She had a little baby, and the aunt or whoever took custody of the baby said like she still cries for her mom. I know, it's really,
that's too much.
It's too much. It's too much. But so yeah, it's just crazy. Like it was just like such a weird twist that she.
It's. I mean, in my mind, it's like, did she really feel that way when she made the movie of like, I can't believe it, or was it all a ploy to like, I don't know, for all we know, it could have even been to like hide the fact that she could ever possibly be capable of it, just to like give herself an alibi 2 years in advance. Maybe.
No, you're right. Like, and I watched it and it's so weird. And she does seem like very distraught, but it's also like she kind of seems a little crazy because she's like, kind of wackadoodle. So it's like,
you don't know what she's going to do.
She doesn't seem stable to begin with. Right. So who knows like where her brain is at. But yeah, so that, and then last fun fact before I forget, from Natalie, she said the original oven and fridge and bathtub are still in the apartment, even after there was a fire too, but like it's all still there. And she said she's seen shows and videos of people going into the apartment, and it's weird. Like you can literally look at the oven and be like, oh, someone's legs were cooked in that oven.
Rough.
Isn't that horrifying?
People like, they cook food on that.
That's stove. The thing. How could you ever take a bath in a bathtub where someone was dismembered? Like, this the thought makes me want to vomit.
Like, oh, let me just shower and pretend that I don't know how much blood was once sitting in this tub. Or, oh, let me just make my fucking Kraft mac and cheese and my like fucking rice-a-roni on the same stove as someone's body.
But it's a Whirlpool tub. You can't blame me.
It's disgusting.
Isn't that horrifying?
Yeah.
I have never heard of that before in my life.
And me either.
So that was kind of a random one that I decided to take a leap of faith.
Well, you did it.
You guys. Thanks for being you.
When does this come out?
This comes out on the 1st of October, which means it's also Listener Story Day.
All right. So a twofer.
All right.
Lucky for you guys. Poor for Christina for editing.
Lucky for me.
Also, I pay rent on the 1st, so neither of us are having a good time on the 1st.
Me too.
Oh my. Well,
and we just paid our deposit, so it's like
so you have no money right now.
No money. Yes.
And that's why we drink.
Our Patreon can be found.
Yep.
Just kidding.
Also, apparently people still are having questions about where to find our merch. And by people, I mean people in the generation above us.
Like your mom?
Like our parents.
Oh, okay.
Because my dad called me, who doesn't call me often, by the way, called me to be like, I want one of your shirts. Where do I get one of your shirts? Your uncle wants a shirt and I don't know where to get a shirt. And I'm like, you clearly just want the shirt and not listen to the show because we tell you all the time where to get the shirts.
100%.
If for some reason this is your first time ever hearing that we have merch available, you can find it at andthat'swhywedrink.bigcartel.com.
Correct.
Would we like to, do you want to?
All I'll say is that we've sent out all our Patreon merch today, which is not today that you're listening to this, but it came out this week. Should be, if it's not there right now, it should be there either tomorrow or Tuesday. And now that I'm in this house with a lot more room, it's a lot easier for me to ship merch. So
We have an actual shipping room.
we do.
We have an actual room where all the stuff that goes to you guys gets stored and put away. It's so much nicer than an apartment.
So much nicer. There's like a printer and I have different sections for each t-shirt size. Like,
Gosh,
it's great.
That's beautiful.
It's
It's like
beautiful.
your own little in-house store.
It is. I feel like I'm like an Etsy seller, but less creative. But yeah, so check out our merch. We have it there for you. If you're a Patreon subscriber, we have discounts for you.
Jesus Christ.
Listen, it's been a long day. Thanks, guys, for listening.
There's nothing else to report here.
I don't think so. We're so happy you guys are a part of our lovely little group, and find us on Facebook. If you like our page, and that's why we drink, there's a link to our secret group where we can chat and talk about all sorts of crazy shit. It's a secret, and that's why we drink group.
Yep. And then we've got Twitter, Instagram. You can follow our personal pages also. You can send in your listener stories at andthat'swhywedrink@gmail.com. We also have a website where you can look at some cool stuff about us at andthat'swhywedrink.com. Our Patreon, you can find us at ATWWD Podcast or And That's Why We Drink.
I think it's patreon.com/ATWWD podcast.
You would think we would know. Well, whatever.
It's just that I'm really humble, so I don't like
Right.
to think about like people giving me stuff.
Modesty is your greatest quality.
It is. It is. Thank you. I'm glad you know. Okay, I just looked it up. Patreon.com/ATWWD podcast.
Yep. And you can find us on, well, you're already listening to us, so it doesn't matter where you can find us. But if your friends ask, we got Audio Boom, Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, anywhere else?
Stitcher. All the good stuff. And if you guys can, it would be super duper helpful if you write us a review, just because that like helps us a lot in the rankings.
Gets our name out there.
Yeah. So feel free to write a review if you have the chance.
Unless it's a bad one, then just don't do it.
Then please keep it to yourself. That's what journals are for.
If you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Thank you.
And that's why we drink.
And that's why we drink. Cheers.
Wait, by the microphone.
Okay. It sounded like we broke something.